So today in module 2 DevOps daily operations, we will talk about the day-to-day activities, responsibilities, collaboration with the multiple teams, client meetings, stand-ups, communication or the pattern, and the requirement gathering. Okay. So these are the daily basis activities which we need to perform. This can be vary on the company to company and project to project. Okay. Just don't make like a universe thumb rule, but similarity. There are a couple of things this will definitely help out you in the during the interview process. If someone asks you what are the day-to-day activities you are performing, what are the roles and responsibility you are doing, right? How you are collaborating with the multiple teams, cross teams, right? So teams means what? There are dev team, front end, back end developers, QA, other teams, architect like that. Okay. Then how you do these client meetings, stand-ups, and other communications. So those really will help out you. Okay. In between, if you have any questions, you can just feel free to ask. No, doesn't matter if you are there, it's a silly questions or any other questions, but try to ask if you have any different thought process in your mind or any doubts. Okay. So if I talk about the day-to-day activities, which ideally the DevOps person do. Okay. There are a couple of activities. As I said, it may be vary depend on the roles or permission you have because when we talk about the responsibilities and other things. So sometimes in the big MNCs, right, we may have a very restricted access. We don't have a full access over there to like admin access, for example, in the cloud. So you can create the infrastructure from the scratch, do the configurations, do the deployments, configure the CI/CD pipelines, enable the observability like monitoring tools, SRE jobs, and do other things, right? There might be a restricted permission, like you can just create the CI/CD pipeline. Platform engineering team will do the server provisioning, and DevOps person will do the other activities like that. Or maybe you have the only monitoring access. You can do only the monitoring. Just someone already deployed the infrastructure, and DevOps person done with the CI/CD integration and other things. You are just doing deployment from the particular branch or any release things, and you are just monitoring the deployments. You are monitoring the pod status, deploy 𝐌𝐞𝐤, okay, and other things. You are monitoring the resource utilization. If anything goes wrong or suspicious, you can inform to the other teams. If you are suppose you are doing the task for the L1 team, you need to inform if you have access, if you have a run books, how you can resolve this issue, and it's within your scope. Definitely you have to do. But if it's not within your scope, it's not your job. Your job is to get the alerts, acknowledge it, and inform to some other person or other teams. How you can acknowledge? You can maybe there are multiple mediums available. People might use in the company Slack channels, Microsoft Teams, Skype for the business, and other things. So there are a couple of good tools. So majorly people are using Slack channels, Slack group, and your Teams, Microsoft Teams. Somewhere you can find the Skype, but majorly, if you ask me, Slack and Teams, Slack and Microsoft Teams. Okay, where you might need to inform on the any particular groups, or maybe you need to drop a mail. Okay, it's depend on the process. As I said, it can be vary on the project to project and company to company. Okay, so let's assume we can see the two situations. One is you have a full control, you have admin access, you have a authority to do everything from the scratch. So in this case, what will be your responsibilities, right? So as a zero, take requirements from the client, sometimes maybe from the architect, sometimes from the maybe different teams. Dev team can ask you, right? Just create the S3 bucket, just create the EKS cluster or this service, configure the CI/CD pipelines for like that. So in this case, you need to take complete responsibilities, ownership, right? Full ownership. In this case, partial ownership, right? So in full ownership, you need to take requirements. How much? Let's say, if I give you the simple example, for example, uh, we can take. We will not definitely not take the EC2 instance example. We will take the EKS cluster example because nowadays most of the things are using on the container base. Okay, we will not see the traditional based example right now. EKS cluster you have to provision. So what things you required? Can anyone try to explain? I will definitely explain you, but in your thought process, if someone asks you in your manager or architect, can you just provision the EKS cluster? So what question you will ask? You can try to just give the answer. Doesn't worry about the 100% perfect or something, but try to explain.
I think memory disk size
Hmm.
and subnet means subnet which region means deploy the EKS cluster
Hmm.
and VPC means which region VPC also requirements which VPC already deploy or create new VPC that thing we ask to manager or client.
Swati?
Security groups, then also in which account, like in many of the companies that we are having multiple AWS accounts for different things, like we have different accounts, right? So I'll also ask
Hmm.
for which account, then security groups, then like how many pods and all inside it or something required.
Hmm. Okay, let me draw something. Yeah, you most of the things clear. What things we need to ask? Even in the interview process as well, if someone asks you from the panel how you would provision the EKS cluster, don't start blindly answering on that. Okay. First, you can understand or get the clarity. Is this for the dev environment or production environment? Because don't assume that interview is the one-way process. Only panel will ask the question, we will answer. No, you should ask cross question as well. Otherwise, how he can understand ki how you have what level of knowledge you have, right? So just do some maturity. Just don't follow the traditional things that candidate follows. Try to ask the cross question before answering something. Just creating the case cluster blindly is definitely straightforward answer, but not ideal. I mean the real time base. You need to understand as you have explained. First, understand, or maybe we need definitely company might have a multiple AWS accounts. Why the multiple account? So forget about the dev, QA, production environment, but I'm talking about the service or entity wise. So if there are any API services for the any I'm audible.
Yes,
Okay, actually the power gone actually. Okay. I hope the screen is visible.
yes, it is visible.
Okay. So first we need to understand which account we need to use. As simple as if account is clear, then region. If already infrastructure created in particular region, so definitely you can use that existing one. It can be North Virginia or Mumbai, Hyderabad, or any other regions, or any Singapore base or something like that, depend on the client, right? But if it's from the scratch, definitely we need to ask which region we need to provision. Okay. So after that, so definitely environments we will discuss. We require this infrastructure for the dev, QA, production or something like that. Sometimes what happen, why we need to ask? Sometimes they might want to perform the POC only. They don't want to use for the live things or something. If they want to do just for the POC point of view, we need to ask, right, where we need to create dev environment or QA or something like that. So if it's they required for entire environments, so definitely you can provision like that, dev, QA, production, something, right? So because based on that, the configuration matters. For the dev QA, we will not require high availability or something or better configuration. But for the production, we would require, right? The auto scaling required, your high availability required, better configuration required, security and other things, controls. Those things we need to take care. Deployment strategies, pod configurations, those matters, right, for the production. So that's why. Then access. If someone asks about the EKS cluster access for any monitoring stuff or any management, you can ask, do any candidate require the access of this cluster? So when we enable the RBAC rollback access control in the EKS cluster, we can grant particular user permission. I will show you later when we actually provision the EKS cluster. Okay? Because that's required restricted access. We cannot give all access to everyone. So that's why. Then based on the application nature, how much traffic workload expected, we can set the configurations, pod configurations, how much CPU, how much memory we require, right? Then obviously networking is the first point, baseline we need to think about. You cannot ignore this, or maybe without this you cannot go proceed. Okay, networking. So you need to design the scalable VPC architecture, public or private subnets, and you aware right now latest one. Have you followed that news? NAT gateway new feature.
No.
I shared on the group as well about the NAT gateway.
Oh, okay. Yes, yes. Net gave API direct APIs.
Yes.
No, no, I mean you don't need to create separate public subnet, or you don't need to create the public subnet like that. I mean NAT gateway to select the public subnet. Now the things are changed. So you can just create the type of NAT gateway, like there are internal and external, like public or private, similar like a load balancer. So same thing, you can just create the NAT gateway. You don't need to make the other like route table entry and other things. We will see that the latest feature going forward.
Okay.
But the way which earlier we designed NAT gateway for the public subnet, we need to select the public subnet. And second thing is we need to select the per AZ per NAT gateway. It's not expandable to the entire region. But now the new feature has changed. You can create the NAT gateway for entire VPC or entire region. I mean, you don't need to select per availability zones. That's really good things that we will try in the practically when we learn about the EKS cluster. Okay, so those things. So we need to always follow the latest trends. Now, from where you can get this information? So as I said last time, also you can just follow this link. I will share in the group. This is the link where you can get the information. If you visit this, scroll down. I think they have changed the page now. It's not like that. Let me check. They have changed the UI. This news. Okay, that is the only link. Okay, which I shared. You can see the here date wise 27, right? The 27/11. So this type information we can read. These are the latest improvements by the AWS team. What changes they have made. CloudWatch now supports deletion protection for logs. So I think this is the new one. AWS Compute Optimize now support the unused NAT gateway recommendations like
Means
that.
what, sir? Deletion log means support deletion protection log.
So you can just click on that link and you can just read details. कि क्या exactly they enabled. CloudWatch now offers configuration deletion protection. So log group के लिए earlier we don't have protection. So someone can delete the log group accidentally. So that is the things. They have enabled that feature now.
Yes, yes, okay.
So this way you can just get the latest information from the AWS by following this link. At least once or twice or maybe once a day you can just visit this page. So daily basis you will get the knowledge. Just एक बार just देख लेंगे तो भी काफी है कि कुछ नया काम की चीज आई है क्या क्योंकि if someone enter panel asks you the latest question, right? So let's say for example NAT gateway. If I am the inter panel, I know the new feature rollout. If I ask the question and you answer that, right? So it's really a great impression on that. Ki you follow the latest trend as well, and you are aware about the latest changes. So small things can mix better in the intro process. So that's why just have some latest knowledge also that's really required. So these are the major things which we will at least ask ki AWS accounts, region, environments, access, pod configurations, then the load balancers, okay, and in the security group as Swati said कि कौन port जो open करना है हमें, the port which we need to open for which IP address, right? If you want to make it publicly accessible or for the particular IP address only, so that also matters. So you can ask that as well. Okay, because sometimes application we should not expose to the outer world. It's just for the internal purpose only, internal use case, company wide. So in that case, we can give the company IP ranges only instead of opening for the public one. Okay? And failure वगैरह ठीक है. If it's for the production environment, then how much minimum pods you required, how much minimum nodes you required, auto scalings, right? If you want to set up auto scaling, so how much auto scaling? I mean, what should be the minimum node? For example, two, desired two, and maximum how much? 5, 10, something. Depend on the workload. So those things we can ask. So based on that, as a complete ownership, you need to take care. Now, as a complete ownership we have, right? How we can provision this entire things? Is it only the application provision things? No, right? Because we need to think about you have required the gather information requirement gathering. This step is done, right? You get all the requirements, you are clear now. Now next step, right? Next step, you need to prepare the project. Now when you prepare the project from your local machine, just think about the proper compliance thing, not about the small startup organization. So you need to store the code base in Git. Don't put on the local, okay? And for that you can use Visual Studio Code वगैरह. You can use it. If you don't have install, you can just install it. Okay, Visual Studio. ये जो you can see the logo here, Visual Studio Code. Okay, so you can manage your infrastructure code and application code, application level code base as well, the developers one. You can set up this project, then create repo. In that, create proper branching strategies, environment wise, right? Then do code writing on your local machine by using the VS Code. Let's say it's provisioning the EKS cluster. So whatever the things is required, VPC, networking, security groups, load balancing, grace configuration, entire thing जो हमने अभी collect किया है. So entire things you need to provision. Now, if you are authority to use, if you have authority to use Terraform, you can use Terraform. If you don't have authority to use Terraform, either you can go with the cloud formation. We will see going forward both one. Okay. If you don't have, sometimes because it's depend on the architecture decision and the client's approval. If sometimes people also use CDK, Cloud Development Kit, which is similar to Cloud Formation Terraform, infrastructure as a code, because we are not going to provision the infrastructure manually. Just keep a thumb rule. We need to manage entire thing with the proper standard process and the compliance thing, right? We are not doing anything from manual console. Use either any one of these infrastructure as a code, Terraform, CloudFormation, CDK. That's it. Okay. We know most of the things, most of the times people use Terraform, but there are a couple of projects you will see in the career where company might use CloudFormation or CDK. I personally worked on these three tools. Earlier project I used on the CDK, and now in current project I'm using CloudFormation. So before that I use little bit on the Terraform as well. Okay. So you don't know when you get the opportunity to work on any of the tools. But Terraform, as you know, it's a market leader, so most of the times we use it. But there are a couple of things opportunity you will get that work on the cloud formation or CDK. So definitely learning curves are there. So from the day one, you can't expect you can write down the complete code. You need to, as I said earlier, the basic rules of the learning any new technology. That understand the technology, how it works, terminology, how to set up, and the theoretical part and the project setup. So you can easily understand कि वो कैसे work करेगा उसमें.
One question, sir.
Yeah.
सर अगर हम यहाँ पे अभी नहीं करते कुछ प्रोविजनिंग वगैरह कुछ नहीं करते हैं तो वहाँ पे जाएंगे न्यू कंपनी में कभी भी तो वहाँ पे डायरेक्ट प्रोविजन करने देते हैं कि मतलब ये कर दो ये वीपीसी 10 वीपीसी बना दो और अदर्स का मतलब ये टेराफॉर्म से बनवा दो ऐसे सर्वर वगैरह ऐसा कुछ डायरेक्ट देते हैं या कुछ ऐसा होता है.
As I said, it's depend on the scope. आपको क्या परमिशन दी जाती है. If you have a complete ownership, you have to do it. अगर नहीं है, आपकी ऑलरेडी प्रॉपर टीम है जहाँ पे 5-6 डेवऑप्स वाले ऑलरेडी है, बट सम पीस ऑफ थिंग्स यू हैव टू कंप्लीट. जो भी आपको टास्क मिलेगा, बट करना तो है ही आपको. मे बी यू
ओके.
कैन टेक गाइडेंस फ्रॉम द सीनियर पर्सन. कुछ इंटरनल केटी होती है, ऐसे नहीं कि डायरेक्टली आपको बिठा दिए. प्रोजेक्ट अंडरस्टैंडिंग रैंप अप जो हम बोलते हैं ना, वो होता है कि प्रोजेक्ट
केटी
किस तरह से
वगैरह.
है. यस यस,
केटी.
इंटरनल गेटी होता है. ऐसे डे वन से नहीं बिठाएगा आपको कि ये आ गया कर लो. नहीं, आपको इंटरनल केटी मिलेगी कि प्रोजेक्ट किस तरह से है, क्या क्या कोड है, क्या क्या सेट सर्विसेज यूज करते हैं. और ऐसे भी हो सकता है समटाइम्स कि आपको केटी ना मिले. कुछ प्रोजेक्ट है वैसे जहाँ पे बंदा ऑलरेडी छोड़ के चला गया है, आपको जस्ट डॉक्यूमेंट देके अंडरस्टैंड करना है कि क्या क्या यूज किया है, फिर आपको उस पर काम करना है. ऐसे भी सिचुएशन आ सकता है. तो यू हैव टू
ओके.
प्रिपेयर फॉर दैट एज वेल.
ओके एसओपी
ऐसे
वगैरह होते हैं कुछ.
छोटी कंपनी में ऐसे होता है, जो एमएनसी वगैरह होते हैं ना, वहां पे नहीं होता है ऐसा इशू. वहां पे
ओके एसओपी.
प्रॉपर, हाँ होता है ना, डॉक्यूमेंट्स वगैरह सारा कुछ होता है, क्या क्या फॉलो करना है. बिकॉज वी आल्सो हैड इन द अर्लियर प्रोजेक्ट कि आपको कुछ भी ब्लाइंडली नहीं बनाना है, प्रॉपर अप्रूवल लेके जो प्रोसेस कंप्लायंस के अंडर है वही आपको क्रिएट करना है.
ओके.
You will get sometimes in the project everything ready made. Sometimes you also get some opportunity कि आपको खुद बनाना पड़ेगा सब कुछ. So you have to deal with the both situation. Don't expect always bread and butter आपको मिलेगा कि हाँ रेडीमेड मिल गया मैं अब काम कर लूंगा. अभी सीडीके के केस में लिटरली आई विल टेल यू हाउ मच फ्रेंड्स यू हैव इन योर सर्कल जो सीडीके पे काम करते हैं. देर आर
नो।
वेरी लेस अमाउंट. मे भी आपको मिलेगा भी नहीं, या मिलेगा तो आपको ढूंढना पड़ेगा कहीं ना कहीं. तो सोचो जब व्हेन आई स्टार्ट विद दिस सीडीके हाउ आई फील द सिचुएशन. क्लाइंट तो बहुत बड़ा था, बोल भी नहीं सकता था कि मुझे ट्रेनिंग चाहिए, तो उसको भी मुझे डील करना पड़ा बिकॉज आई हैव सम फैमिलियर विद द टेराफॉर्म एंड अदर थिंग्स. ओनली इफ यू नो द कंसेप्ट, बाकी चीजें थोड़ा इधर उधर चेंज होती है कोडिंग वाइज. बट सीडीके यू कैन लिटरली आई एंजॉय द सीडीके. उसके बाद में पूरा मल्टीपल इन्वायरमेंट्स मैंने सेटअप करके दिया क्लाइंट को.
यस।
सो थोड़ा सा इनिशियली लर्निंग कर्व आता है. यू माइट फील कि क्या हो गया, मैं कहाँ पे आके फंस गया है.
सीडीके
बट
के
इफ यू
लिए सर बोटो 3 का यूज होता है ना?
यहाँ पे लाइब्रेरीज वगैरह होती है सपोर्टेड, बट इट्स यू कैन यूज योर एक्सपर्टीज लाइक पाइथन बेस्ड, नोड जेएस बेस्ड. हम नोड जेएस यूज करते थे.
ओके।
इट सपोर्ट्स मल्टीपल लैंग्वेज सीडीके.
लेकिन बोटो 3 यूज करते सीडीके के लिए, यूज करते बोटो 3 किसके लिए?
जो प्लगइन्स होता है, फॉर एग्जांपल यू वांट टू क्रिएट द ईकेएस क्लस्टर एस3, तो सपोर्टेड लाइब्रेरीज बोटो 3 तो इट्स लाइक आपके इसमें प्रोग्रामिंग वे से अगर कुछ एक्सेस करना है, कुछ के मैनेज करना है, तो वहाँ पे यूज होता है लाइब्रेरीज.
ओके ओके।
बट इस केस में आपको सपोर्टेड प्लगइन्स चाहिए होता है विच यू नीड टू इंस्टॉल द लाइब्रेरीज. अभी S3 बकेट क्रिएट करना है, सो यू कैन क्रिएट द S3 बकेट बाय यूजिंग द SDK प्लगइन्स इसका सीडीके का. एक सैम्पल स्ट्रक्चर ऑफ कोड होता है, तो वो आप जस्ट गूगल करके भी देख सकते हो. पर बहुत बारीक बारीक चीजें इशू आती है, तो यू हैव टू कीप पेशेंस. लर्न कैसे करना है. दैट्स व्हाई द वन रूल इन आर्मी एरिया, राइट. अगर वो क्या बोलते हैं उसको, खून कम बहाना है बॉर्डर पे, तो अभी यहाँ पे मेहनत करनी पड़ेगी, ऐसा कुछ लाइन है ना, जो प्रैक्टिस करवाते हैं उनसे. वैसे ही कुछ है, अगर प्रोडक्शन में ज्यादा इशू अगर फेस नहीं करना है या क्विकली सॉल्व करना है, तो वी नीड टू डू मोर एंड मोर प्रैक्टिस. ये इस तरह से आपको लाइब्रेरीज वगैरह यूज करना होता है. सीडीके की कंस्ट्रक्ट्स होते हैं इसमें. ये सीडीके S3 का पैकेज आपको इंपोर्ट करना होता है लाइब्रेरीज. तो दिस इज सम सॉर्ट ऑफ सीडीके कोड फॉर द क्रिएशन ऑफ द S3 बकेट. जो हम मैनुअली करते हैं ना, वही है. S3 मैनेज बकेट का नाम देना है, हाउ मच एक्सपायरी वगैरह लगाना है, क्या लाइक दैट, ऑटो डिलीशन ऑफ द ऑब्जेक्ट. वही है जो मैनुअल करते हैं, वही चीजें होती है, कोडिंग से करनी है. बट फर्स्ट वी नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड दी कि करना क्या है. S3 बकेट में सिर्फ S3 बकेट बकेट बना दिया तो हो गया क्या? नहीं. तो हमें जो प्रॉपर कंप्लायंस थिंग्स है वो फॉलो करना होता है. बकेट पब्लिक नहीं होनी चाहिए,
पर
रेस्ट्रिक्टेड एक्सेस होना चाहिए. किसी को अगर फॉर एग्जांपल इफ समवन वांट S3 बकेट एक्सेस, क्या आपको उसको पूरा एक्सेस दे दोगे आप? नहीं. जस्ट गिव द बेस्ड ऑन द रिक्वायरमेंट कि आपको क्या चाहिए भाई. रीड ओनली एक्सेस चाहिए या पुट ऑब्जेक्ट चाहिए, मतलब डाउनलोड अपलोड चाहिए, तो वही एक्सेस देना है उसको, डिलीट का एक्सेस देना नहीं है. सो वो लेवल पे हमें जाके काम करना पड़ता है एज अ प्रॉपर थिंग्स. एवन वी बिल्ड आवर हाउस, राइट, कि डायरेक्टली हम मिस्त्री को बोलते हैं क्या कि भाई ऐसा एक 2 रूम बना दे, हो गया मेरा घर, राइट. वो ऐसे ब्लैंक बना के छोड़ देगा, बट अंदर कहाँ पे क्या रखना है वो सब हमें बताना पड़ेगा ना, रिक्वायरमेंट के हिसाब से. डोर किधर रखना है, विंडोज सजा वगैरह कहाँ पे क्या रखना है, राइट. सब कुछ चीजें हमें एक्सप्लेन करना पड़ता है. इट्स काइंड ऑफ रिक्वायरमेंट थिंग्स, रिक्वायरमेंट गैदरिंग. क्या यूज केस क्या है, सिर्फ गेस्ट के लिए चाहिए या आपको एक प्रॉपर आपको वर्किंग के लिए भी चाहिए, आपको वो हिसाब से आपको डिजाइन करना है. वेंटिलेशन थिंग्स, वो सब कुछ जो रियल टाइम में है, पर्सनल लाइफ में वही हमें इधर वही होता है, बस थोड़ा सा टर्मिनोलॉजी चेंज हो जाता है। बट द प्रोसेस लाइक की रिक्वायरमेंट गैदरिंग में क्या क्या चीजें आनी चाहिए, दैट वी नीड टू कंसिडर। ये चीजें हमें कब अंडरस्टैंड होती है, जब हमने स्टडी की है, नेटवर्किंग की, कंप्यूटर पावर की, कॉस्टिंग की। अभी ऐसा भी नहीं है कि आप घर बनाने की सोच रहे हो बट आपको बजट ही पता नहीं है कितना लग सकता है। आपने सोचा 10 लाख में बन जाएगा, बट लग रहा है 40 लाख।
हेलो।
एम ऑडिबल नाउ?
Yes.
ओके, इज लाइट वापस आ गई है, ठीक है। तो वेयर एग्जैक्टली ब्रेक, एडब्ल्यूएस कैलकुलेटर और समथिंग? वॉइस कहाँ पे अटक गई थी मेरी?
बहुत पीछे थे आप, कैलकुलेटर पे नहीं थे, पीछे थे बहुत।
कहाँ पे एग्जैक्टली?
पे कौन सा चल रहा था हमारा?
आई एम जस्ट एक्सप्लेनिंग कि कैलकुलेटर को रिक्वायरमेंट गैदरिंग वगैरह, जो घर का एग्जांपल दे रहा था।
यस यस। सर एक्सप्लेन कीजिए, कैलकुलेटर एक्सप्लेन कीजिए।
So basically, I was just explaining कि when you are planning to do some house building, right? If you don't know the costing कि कितना costing आएगा, you are assuming कि मेरा 10 लाख में काम हो जाएगा घर का, right? But its actual cost is getting 30 lakh to 40 lakh. So it's over provision, right? Over price. You have only this budget. So when you do infra provisioning based on your application nature, you are expecting कि आपको जो, for example, एक सर्वर चाहिए 4 GB RAM and 4 CPU, for example, is sufficient for you based on whatever the POC you have done. So why you all unnecessary create 8 GB or 16 GB server, 8 core CPU, right? It's not necessary. It's over provision. So we also need to think about it when you do the planning, capacity planning and the POC, when we do actual performance testing before exact infra release. Okay. So that's why AWS has some thumb rules, right? If you heard about the 6 framework model or pillar, AWS framework pillars: operation excellence, security, reliability, performance, efficiency, cost optimization, and sustainability. So these are the thumb rules suggesting by the AWS team. As an architect, we need to think these things, 6 pillars of the AWS well architect, to design your architecture. So that infrastructure should not be over provision unnecessary. This space you require only 10 GB, but you are provisioning 100 GB. Does it make sense? No, right?
No.
So why we need unnecessary pay the 90 GB bill unnecessary to the AWS? It's a kind of, pay per use. जैसे इलेक्ट्रिसिटी है हमारी होम की, जिस तरह से यूज करोगे उस तरह से आपको बिल आएगा। फ्रिज है, गीजर है, अदर थिंग्स और गैजेट्स है, सो आपको बिल उस हिसाब से आएगा। घर में कुछ भी नहीं है, जस्ट टीवी है, तो ऑब्वियसली बिल आपको कम आएगा उस हिसाब से। Can take any example, or maybe for example Mumbai. So you can use this calculator service, calculator.aws, to give the cost estimation to the client. You can just select the region, find the service, for example EC2, okay. Search. You can select the Linux operating system or Windows, whichever you are using. So in here, select the instance types. For example, you require T3 dot medium.